Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the turbos, specifically to the new Lexus GX550. A big question is who makes the turbos. So we all know these engines are going to be twin turbo V6s inside of this new Lexus GX550. The engine has been out for a while and we know it's going to be a twin turbo. So that brings a lot of people a lot of anxiety. So today we're going to specifically answer what kind of turbo is in this car. And you might be surprised to find out that it's actually the same type of turbo that they use on the Ferrari. So the turbocharger that's going in your Lexus GX550 is going to be made by IHI Turbo. They've been around since 1880 something, so a very, very, very long time. So they're not new to turbos. This is not someone figuring out turbos. IHI Turbo is a very reputable turbocharger company that has been around since before your great-grandparents were born. So they're not new to turbos, and Toyota's not new to turbos. Incidentally, IHI is made in Japan. So these are Japanese turbos, and right here you're looking at one out of the Lexus GX, well, what is soon to be the Lexus GX550. So this is the actual turbo by IHI. By the way, if I didn't say it, that's made in Japan. This is a Japanese turbocharge company, considered the best in Japan. So this is your actual turbo, and we'll take a look at some other pictures of this turbo here. But this is the turbo that's going to be in your Lexus GX550. So you all know what a turbocharger looks like, so that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is, and we're going to kind of jump back and forth with these images here. We're just having a casual time. Here we can see the wastegate. This had the issues in the Tundra. It wasn't the wastegate, it was this actuator, which is here. But anyway, let's talk about this IHI Turbo. So this is your actual model number. So inside your Lexus GX550, your Land Cruiser 300, and your Lexus LX600, you're going to have this IHI VB44. So that's your actual model number here. This came from a wrecked Tundra, one of the few pictures available out there. But that's your actual model number. So IHI, as I keep rambling, is made in Japan. They've been around for a long time. That is point number one. The more important point is right here in the center, made in Japan. Okay, so you're getting a Japanese turbocharger, and like I said, not just any Japanese turbo, one of the best. Other Japanese companies make turbos, namely Mitsubishi. But this is not your off-the-shelf Mitsubishi turbo. This is the same turbos that they put in the Ferrari. Now, a lot of people are concerned that the engine in their Lexus GX550 is going to be under increased pressures and stresses from the turbo and it won't be able to handle it and blah, 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 it'll blow up, blah. Okay, so in order to address that, we're going to talk about this car here, which is the Toyota GR Corolla. So if you're not familiar with this car, the GR Corolla is essentially a very fast three-cylinder turbocharged engine or car by Toyota. It has a three-cylinder turbocharger in it. So a three-banger turbo, and it makes, and this is the important part, 300 horsepower at 1.6 liters. Now, a lot of people think that the engine inside their V6 twin turbo inside of their Lexus GX550 seen here is some sort of stressed and maxed out turbocharged engine that just won't be able to handle the tremendous forces and pressures of the turbines and the compressors. You get what I'm saying? They fear that the engineers didn't make them strong enough. Well, here's the point I'm trying to get at. I'm going to show you today just how conservative, and I do mean conservative, the turbocharged setup inside your Lexus GX550 is. And for an example, to prove this, so to speak, we're going to use this engine in this GR Corolla, for example. So what do I mean? Let's get straight to it. As mentioned, this is a 3-banger, and your V6 twin turbo inside of your Lexus GX550 seen here. So this is the engine that you're going to get. Here's your V6, here's your row of 3, 6 cylinders, and you have 2 turbochargers. And here's my point. Remember that this is a parallel system, so you have 1 turbocharger, not responsible for all 6 cylinders, nor is it in series. It's not 1 turbocharger, then running the input of the second turbocharger. They're not stacked in series. They are parallel. This is as conservative as you can possibly get in an engine like this. So 1 turbocharger, or each turbocharger seen here, is only powering 3 cylinders. And that's how you have to think about the engine or the turbocharged setup in your Lexus GX550. 1 turbo for 1 bank of 3 cylinders. So you have to think of these as 2, almost like 2 of those GR Corolla engines connected together. And you might say, well, doesn't that still stress it out? Not so. Because like we mentioned, the GR Corolla is simply one side of this. So it's GR Corolla has 3 cylinders and 1 turbocharger. The only issue is, or the only difference, and this is my point, this is a big difference, the GR Corolla is pushing 300 horsepower. Let me say it again. In case you didn't know, this GR Toyota Corolla is pushing out 300 horsepower out of 3 cylinders. So what's my point? You have 6 cylinders in your Lexus GX550, and in order to just be equal with the GR Corolla, one side, or 1 bank of 3 cylinders, would have to push out 300 horsepower. So in essence, this whole engine would have to push out 600 horsepower to match the output of the GR Corolla. In other words, if it was pushing the limits of what it could do, this thing would be outputting 300 horsepower on this side and 300 horsepower on that side, just like the GR Corolla, give or take. But here's the issue. The Lexus GX550 puts out something like 349 horsepower. So when we half that 349 horsepower, when we divide the horsepower of what the Lexus GX550 is going to put out, which is, again, 300, let's call it 350 horsepower, divided by 2, that's 175 horsepower per bank. So if we think of this GX550 engine as 2 GR Corolla engines connected together, instead of pushing out 300 per side, it's pushing out 175 per side. But it gets even better because this is a 3.5 liter engine. So if we half that, it's something like 1.7 liters. But the GR Corolla is even smaller. So its 3-cylinder engine is only 1.6 liters. But let's just, for the sake of making things simple, just call them both whatever, 1.6 liter engines. So let's say that this one side of this is the same as GR Corolla. It's still not pushing out anywhere near 300 horsepower. So my point of all this passionate rambling is this GX550 engine is completely detuned and completely conservative. It is very conservative. I think Lexus and Toyota are hiding a lot of potential in this engine, detuning it on purpose to play it safe and conservative. That's what they do. And by the end of this model run, this thing will be pushing out near 600 horsepower without any changes other than the tuning. So I want to point out again that the GR Corolla is pushing out way more for a 3-cylinder engine per 3 cylinders than this GX550. I think you get what I'm understanding. And remember, it's a parallel configuration. So you have 1 turbo for 3 cylinders, 1 turbo for 3 cylinders, and then it's detuned. And nobody has reported in the GR Sport community, in other words, the people that thrash those GR Sports, because it's meant to be a track vehicle, and Toyota holds press events inviting people to thrash this 3-banger making 300 horsepower. Nobody's broken this thing yet, unless they do the money shift. That's the only breaking I've seen. Someone shifts from 6th to 1st by accident. All right, let's move forward. I mentioned that that these are the same turbos in the Ferrari. That is true. The IHI turbos are Ferrari's choice turbo supplier. So here we see a Ferrari. I don't know what Ferrari it is. Old Ferraris, new Ferraris. Ever since Ferraris have been turbocharged on street vehicles going back to the 80s, they've been IHIs made in Japan. Now you may say, well, what's that mean? Ferrari doesn't have the same longevity track record as Toyota, and you'd be right. People keep Ferraris for 15,000, 20,000 miles, and they go die in a garage somewhere forever. Okay, got it. That's fair, but keep in mind, money is no object when we're talking about Ferraris. People buy Ferraris, and Ferrari certainly is going to pick the best parts suppliers available, and they're going to pass that cost, that additional cost, on to their customers. You know, is it torture tested to Toyota standards? Probably not. And yes, we know Toyota does torture test their stuff. But do keep in mind that Ferrari, right off the bat, no matter how long they think anybody's going to keep a Ferrari, they have they have no reason not to pick the best parts suppliers for their turbos and pass it on to the customer. So let that speak for itself. Now, something interesting. The GR Corolla 3-cylinder that we mentioned, you know, 300 horsepower with the IHI turbo, that does not have its own cooling system. So on that system, it's a traditional cooling system. Let's see if we can find it. We'll come back to all this other stuff in a second here. Bear with me. We're just having casual ramblings, and if you're here for some reason still, please remember to like and subscribe. All right, anyway, this is the 3-banger. So this is on the GR Corolla. Its turbocharger, which is right here, its turbocharger is cooled old school style. The cooling lines just tap into the normal radiator that runs all the other cooling on the car. It's belt driven, blah blah, old school style. Whereas the cooling system on your Lexus GX550 has its own dedicated cooling system, and that's what we're seeing here. So if we zoom in, this is, again, I know it looks like a car, but remember, this twin turbo V6 was on the Lexus LS since 2017. So it's a 6-year-old engine. It's been on the road for 6 years in the world market and has had no issues outside of the Tundra fiasco, which was a localized manufacturing issue. Anyway, this here that I'm circling is the radiator. It's a separate radiator on your GX550 just for the turbos, just for the turbo and intercooler system. Okay, it doesn't care what the rest of the car is doing, what the engine's doing. If you're going uphill with the AC blasting up a Colorado mountain, it doesn't care. So this engine, your GX550, is cooled way more efficiently and effectively and independently versus the GR Sport or the GR Corolla. So I'm blibber-blabbering that it is, on top of being, quote, detuned and not near 300 per 3 cylinders, 300 horsepower per 3 cylinders, I'm blabbing that it is cooled tremendously as well. Now, incidentally, the GR Corolla, that's what we're looking at here with the 3 cylinders, has 3 oil squirters. This is great. Most cars only have 1. These oil squirters go back since the World War II, and they're a staple of turbocharged engines. Why are the 3 per cylinder down here? Because it's a turbocharged engine. The weak point is the thin aluminum piston. So it's the piston that gets overheated. The block can dissipate all the heat that it wants. On this GR Sport, you have, I keep calling it GR Sport, GR Corolla. You get 3, which is pretty darn amazing. The oil comes in, squirts the bottom of the cylinder. But let's go over to what your Lexus GX550 is going to have, and you'll see it has a similar setup, if I can find it here, But the bottom line is it has 2 squirters per cylinder instead of 3. Now, why doesn't it get 3? Presumably it only gets 2 squirters per cylinder, and we're looking at that here. This is the GX550 V6 engine. You can see that there's 2 squirter ports, these blue things. So 2 squirters per cylinder. So on this one, of course, you have 12, right? So anyway, the point is, this is a lot. Whether it's 3 or 2, most cars get 1. Again, the V6 is independently cooled and through its own radiator and water pump, and it's got an electric water pump. So it's got a whole different water pump and radiator. And it's got 2 squirters per cylinder, and it's detuned away from that 300 horsepower per 3 cylinders, so presumably it needs to be cooled less. But they're still on top of it with these 2 squirters, so it is overkill here all around for both engines. So while we can't really get a good clear shot of the turbos hidden in here, this is the Ferrari engine, as you can see, and this also is a twin turbo V6, and this is in the a modern Ferrari. So this is the Ferrari you can get now with the twin turbo V6. This thing makes something like 650 horsepower. So, and they're using IHI turbos. At the end of the GX 550 run, again, like I said, I think you're going to see Toyota try to max it out and match the output of this Ferrari engine. Now, will it be 650 horsepower or 600 horsepower? Probably not. But they're probably going to get up to the Lexus LX600s, uptune of, 409 horsepower. They're going to probably surpass that, and you'll probably see a 500, 550. They might be pushing 600 horsepower. Auto manufacturers are known for playing around and doing this. The point of this rambling is to just remind you that the thing is indeed detuned. So keep that in mind. This is not a radical or risk-taking type of engine. It's detuned. It is not making near as much power per 3 cylinders as the 3-cylinder engine seen in the GR Sport. Now, this engine here, because a lot of people claim Toyota's new to turbos. Remember, Toyota's been making turbos since the 80s. And again, this is their V8 twin turbo diesel engine used in the Land Cruiser 200 in the world market. Turbochargers have been in Land Cruisers forever. Okay, so again, IHI turbochargers, and the turbos, this was twin turbocharged as well. The twin turbo in this V8 that was in the Toyota Land Cruiser 200 series is a V8 twin turbo. So again, keep this all in perspective. You have a high-strung GR Sport Corolla on one end, or GR Corolla. Forgive me, I know I keep saying it wrong, but GR Corolla on one end. Okay, you've got that on one end, and then on the other end, you got this V8 twin turbo on the last generation Land Cruiser that's been just fine and has gone thousands of miles, and there's no reported longevity issues. Then you've got the history of Toyota turbos in general. Then you've got the history of IHI Japanese turbos in general. Put that all into context when you are considering getting a Lexus GX550. Just keep it all in mind. This is just for food for thought. I truly think that this engine, the way they tuned it in this GX550, is very conservative. When we step back and look at the big picture, we see a world-class or even exotic class when you consider they throw the IHI turbos and Ferraris. You see this exotic class turbo that's been proven around the world in all sorts of applications, from Subarus to Ferraris to Toyotas to Volkswagens. The Volkswagen people report that they go forever. And then you keep in mind that, again, it is not an engine that is under stress, like people like to say. It's under a lot of stress. Quite the opposite. It's nowhere near its limits. I think you get the point. I think I've rambled enough. Sorry for rambling so much. I just want to remind people to look at the big picture, the context. that this is a very safe, conservative twin turbocharged engine. Please, if there's one thing to remember, from this video, it's that one turbocharger is doing these 3 cylinders, which is still outputting 175 horsepower versus the same setup, 3 cylinders and a turbocharger, same pretty much displacement as far as liters is concerned, in the GR Corolla is doing 300 horsepower. That's the big takeaway from this. And those two engines, this engine right here is basically 2 of those GR Corolla engines glued together. It is detuned nearly half versus that GR Corolla that they invite people to abuse on the track. All right, I think you get my point. Sorry for the rambling. If you found this video helpful or entertaining, please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a great day.